In 2022, a pair of former ball players and a talented young broadcaster were tasked with creating a college football podcast. These men promptly escaped into the mountains of West Virginia and got to work. If you want top-level football analysis, off-topic stories, and locker room humor, you're in the right place. You are In the Gun.
In the Gun, episode 19. It's time for a Texas Tech preview as the Mountaineers get ready to head down to Lubbock. Wes Uhler with the best teammates in the business, the beer truck himself, Owen Schmitt, and the signal caller, Jed Drenning. This episode brought to you by our new friends at Bet Online. Fellas, how we feeling?
Solid.
I like the backdrop.
Solid.
He's sporting all his logos. He's got the UPS coat. He's got the George Costanza UPS coat.
He looks like
Lord
Commander Jon Snow over there.
Wow.
Hey, I had a snowball battle this morning. It was terrific with my son. Dropped him off.
You did get snow, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we did. It was beautiful. The first snow on the Blackwater River is always wonderful.
You can still throw with that arm?
Sort of. Here, you want me to hear me pop it? There, I just popped it for you. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Every 22 minutes, I got to pop it or it locks up on me. I couldn't throw back then with that arm. What are you talking about?
A little snowball fight down there. I love it.
Jed, I heard you just handed it off all the time.
That's all we did.
You threw a Hail Mary every once in a while.
I bet I'd hand it off.
Couple pitches.
10, 12 times a game. We handed it off. Yeah.
Oh, and he was like Sunshine. Remember the Titans? Son, you can throw it a quarter mile, but you can't pitch it 3 yards.
Yeah. Well, I always told Rich, anytime we'd have conditioning tests, okay, we're running quarter mile, we're running hills, we're running this, we're running that. We'd have 400 meters, you probably did a lot of this stuff too. And I always told Rich, I said, next time it's third down and 400 meters, get my ass out of the game. I said, if I got to take more than 3 steps, the other team won already anyway. So something went really wrong if I take more than 3 steps.
Yeah, that's good self-scouting. That's what you need from your quarterback right there. Like I said, this episode of ITG is brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Folks, football is back, and Bet Online remains your #1 source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, game trends, and more. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, NHL, tennis, boxing, and even golf. So head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. And make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE when you sign up to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts. Jed, a little headlines here, as always, to get us going. And I know you were intrigued about some comments made by new Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark.
Yeah, he was at a function and he was asked to address a couple different things, and he was talking extemporaneously. And one of the things he addressed was, okay, how long, in fact, will Texas and Oklahoma be here? Because a lot of that chatter about this premature departure has died down, if you noticed, right?
It has.
And I was even hearing that we were on the road in Austin, a couple weeks ago. That might not be our last trip to Austin. I was even hearing chatter about that. But according to Brett Yormark, he said they're going to be here through 25, talking about Texas and Oklahoma. They're committed
25?
Through 25.
Okay.
They've committed themselves in advance of me getting here, and they've reiterated that commitment. So they'll be here through the duration of the grant of rights. And my relationship with both Texas and Oklahoma is very, very strong. And they are full members, and we're looking forward to working with them, because otherwise, guys, I think it's in the ballpark of $100 and some odd million total that they'd be looking at, because you can't just get out of this thing without, getting stung a little bit financially. So, and he's also talked about expanding the Big 12 brand nationally. Now, I'm all for that if he means by nationally, pushing to the East Coast a little more with some brand equity there. I don't know, guys. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, to me, listen, Texas and Oklahoma, I think some of them were optimistic that they'd be in the SEC by now, or at least by next year. But you're right, Jed. I mean, $100 million. Listen, even for universities and athletic departments that turn over money and print money like OU and Texas, think about what you could do with $100 million if you're Oklahoma or Texas. I mean, that's a lot of coin, even for athletic departments that are that wealthy. And I think particularly when, I mean, still, right, all these athletic departments are still trying to catch up from that COVID year of playing with no fans in football stadiums or only a couple thousand fans. So maybe if that never happens, it's maybe a little bit more attainable or more realistic for Texas and Oklahoma. But yeah, I always thought that was a bit of a long shot when a lot of their fans and media and people that are associated with the universities were talking about being out by 2022 or 2023, just because that's no small coin.
The key phrase there, Owen, was grant of rights. In other words, there's two things independent of one another. There's the TV side and the TV contracts, okay, and the Tier 4 rights on down the line. There's different things at play here, but the grant of rights is a whole different animal. In other words, there's the alignment with the league itself. That's what you'd be paying to leave. Now, you could theoretically do that, then go to the SEC and still be on TV, but pay the Big 12 those TV rights. But that's not going to relax the notion that you're still paying the grant of rights to get out. And that's what they're staring at. But I agree with you, Wes. That 2020 season, some squirrels stored their nuts away better than others, right? So some people are still playing catch up on that, but Owen, pitch in. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like he was Oklahoma and Texas were kind of like the guys that helped him get into that role. If I'm correct from reading that right. So, not saying I don't trust what's being said or whatever, but he obviously has a loyalty to Texas and Oklahoma.
Well, hold up there. Yeah, we got to clarify there. He stepped in the midst of all this playing out.
Yes.
In other words, Bob Bowlesby was kind of ambushed and snookered by what happened a year ago with A&M with Texas. And that was almost by design because I know Texas wouldn't be happy about me saying that. Texas and Oklahoma bailing is really what was the undoing of Bob Bowlesby. And here comes your Mark as his replacement to try and rescue us. But I think you're right, Owen, in the sense that he's aligned with Texas and Oklahoma only insofar as he wants to milk every penny out of them before letting them wiggle free from the Big 12. Otherwise, he has no allegiance to them.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm going with that. And I mean, business is business. That's college football now. It's huge. Money is the all-time. Money makes the world go around. That's super cliche, but that's how it works. Interested to see 2025, right? So we got what, 3 years there, and we have our newbies coming in next year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not newbies, but just saying the new crew that's coming in too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be an interesting. Yeah, it'll be an interesting league as far as, a little more spread out, obviously, across the U.S. As far as the deal being done with the SEC, I mean, would Texas and Oklahoma maybe back out of that possibly? I mean, is that a scenario at all? I don't know. You know what I mean?
I just said the SEC is about to. I mean, the Big Ten just signed $1 billion TV contract. Wait and see what the SEC is when they re-up here in a couple of years. Yeah.
And then I guess my other kind of like thought is those two leaving. Is it really going to hurt the Big 12? I mean, I understand who they are, but I don't know. I mean,
and Jed, you could probably speak to this better than we can, but I would just say from a brand perspective, I think it hurts the Big 12 because they're clearly your two biggest brands. But from a quality perspective,
Oh, well, yeah.
I think you could argue that basketball is going to get better and football will still be just about as strong. I mean, Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, those are good football programs. Houston as well too. They don't have the history and cachet of Oklahoma and Texas, but from top to bottom, I mean, it's going to be a conference where there's no pushovers.
Oh, absolutely, and there'll be a lot of dog fights like it is now. I think there's really three categories you got to look at. They're all intertwined, and yet they're not. You talked about brand and brand equity. You talked about the competitive side of things. As a league, as a whole, I think it's going to be a heck of a competitive league, soup to nuts, top to bottom. And then there's the other side, which is revenue generation. And when you lose brands like Texas and Oklahoma, that's where the bottom line takes the biggest hit. You're just simply not going to generate nearly as much per school in your media deal, in your media rights deal. And that's where you got to get creative. That's where it kind of gets exciting in the sense that we don't know what is beyond the horizon. You got your mark, a Fifth Avenue modern thinker, right? Does he, maybe get in bed or partner up with one of these digital platforms? You now have an Amazon NFL Thursday night game of the week. So the world's changing pretty quickly. So just because the TV landscape is shifting in favor of the SEC and the Big Ten more so than maybe ever before, that might not be the case on the digital side. I mean, everybody's going to need content and everybody's going to need live sports and quality products. So that's where you got to get outside the box. You're going to have a competitive league with a bunch of viable brands in it. No doubt about that. It's not a bunch of as runs, but you're going to have to get outside the box and get pretty creative. Does it come down to subscriptions with these digital platforms? I mean, nobody really knows. But yeah, I just don't see a scenario in which Oklahoma and Texas, seeing what is on the table in the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't see anybody backing out of an opportunity to be a member of one of those two, because you're automatically at the adult table. Everybody else, as long as we've talked about before, as long as access is in some form there, I think the game and the sport can forge ahead, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But you're going to have the power structure is going to go from the Power 5 to probably the Power 2 or some version of it. And of course, if Texas and Oklahoma have the opportunity to be in one of the Power 2, they're going to be in one of the Power 2.
Yeah.
Even if it means taking it on the chin. Vanderbilt's pretty financially well off. What upsets and frustrates the SEC is that Vandy won't, reinvest that money back into the product, right? So anyway, it's a lot going on.
They just spend it all on baseball.
That's right. That's exactly right. But your mark, maybe he's the guy for the job. I mean, we'll see. I mean, he might be exactly the type of guy we need with all these moving parts, with the landscape shifting as quickly as it is. We'll see. But there was just some interesting remarks he made.
It is an interesting conversation. I mean, we could all sit here for the next 40, 50 minutes and continue to go down all these different roads and everything. Let's table this for now. And I mean, this sounds like something we should revisit in the off season when we're looking for.
There's football to talk about right now.
We could talk expansion and TV contracts and streaming and Power 2 or Power 3 and what it means for the Big 12. And does a program like Clemson end up jumping eventually? And what does that mean, right? Let's table that for now. But I would like to get deeper into this with you guys at some point in the off season. This is the Texas Tech preview. We are going to talk all things Red Raiders. We'll do some runaway questions here with the beer truck himself on the other side. If you see Owen right now, if you are watching the Lord Commander on YouTube here for the visual element, you see that nice In the Gun logo behind Big O. Well, if you want that on a t-shirt, on a hat, on all different kind of products, make sure you're checking out itgfootball.com. That's where you can find our merch shop, links to all of our podcasts and social media, little bios about all of us as well too, right? That cool stuff that you would expect to find on a website, itgfootball.com. We will get to your runaway questions for the beer truck himself when we return on the other side after these words from our friends at Toothman Ford.
I'm talking with J.R. Toothman of Toothman Ford. J.R., everybody knows a lot of pro athletes buy from you. What's the secret?
Just like Will Greer, future Hall of Famer Frank Gore, James Washington, and many more pros, these guys have financial advisors that are always looking out for them to save time and money, and that's why they always shop at Toothman Ford.
And what if you're like us regular folks that don't have people giving us advice?
You don't need a financial advisor. Toothman Ford will save you time and money no matter who you are. Plus, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy from us. Visit toothmanford.com and get a quick, instant cash offer.
That sounds like a score to me.
That's right. And as always, we'll take anything in trade from chicken wings to Super Bowl rings.
Toothman Ford's got a lot of fans. Here's another one, Dallas Cowboys QB Will Grier.
This is Will Grier, former West Virginia and current NFL quarterback. And cars really do cost less in Grafton at Toothman Ford.
That's a fact, Will. Thanks. You can shop online anytime at toothmanford.com.
Let's go, Mountaineer fans. You're tuned in to In the Gun with Wes, the Runaway Beer Truck, and the Signal Caller.
Back in the Gun here, episode 19 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. One of our favorite things we do here in the Gun is Runaway Questions. It's a real simple concept, folks. The beer truck himself, Big Owen Schmitt, number 35 in your programs, but number 1 in your hearts. He answers your questions from Twitter about football, about life, about everything in between. At In the Gun Podcast is where you can find us on Twitter and get involved with these installments of Runaway Questions. Big O, I said, are you ready?
Brother.
All right, Tom wants to know stadium that you most love to play in and loudest crowd you ever played in front of.
I'm assuming college.
He
or
said
pro.
college. He said college or pro. Yeah.
Or pro. I have to, not even trying to be cliche here, but I loved playing at Mountaineer, Milan Pushkar. It was, especially during the time that I was playing there, electrifying. You could name a couple, but I'll say probably the top one for me. I definitely love playing at home. Loudest, I'd probably say Seattle probably was the loudest. People have told stories about how it was structured or whatever, but architecturally, however that was made. But I deafening moments with not even sold out crowds.
Yeah. No, that's certainly those 12s go wild out there.
Yeah.
Dan wants to know most underrated player that you ever had as a teammate and most underrated player that you ever played against.
Ooh. Vaughn Rivers.
I knew it. I knew that was going to be the answer.
Straight up. I mean, fearless and just an absolute monster, dude. He would be the guy to stick his face in the fan the first. Hell of a cat too. So much fun, so much energy, a lot of fun to play with. Most underrated guy I played against?
HB Blades.
Horatio Benedict Blades. Yeah.
We could go there. Yeah, we'll say that. Most underrated.
Is that the answer,
underrated.
actually?
He was
it.
overrated.
Most underrated. I think, I was going to say overrated, but
until he met you.
Most underrated. So that's kind of so hard to.
That's tough. That's a tough one on the spot.
Yeah, there's been so many. I don't know. I can't answer that right now. I'll come back to it.
Yeah, if it pops up in your mind at any point, you just let us know. Stress Virginia for life wants to know, Owen, would you ever consider a coaching job at WVU in any capacity?
Oh, absolutely. It would pay more than my current job. It would probably be the same stress level anyways too, as well. It'd be fun to get back.
The only downside to that would be you wouldn't be able to crush beers with me at Mountaineer Field anymore. But hey, we'll make it work. We'll make it work.
I mean, there's always after the game.
There's always after the game. Now we're talking. Denny tweets us and says, Owen, I know you made your share of big hits and broken face masks, but who delivered the biggest hit ever on you?
I'm going to bring this back to high school. Okay. And I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a play on the goal line and he shot the gap and literally he put me right on my hind end. And it was kind of lights out for probably like, a second or two. Like I was kind of like, who that? We
talking like a Mike Backer? What are we talking here?
Nah, I'm pretty sure he was playing line. and
Really?
it was against it was against Madison. And it would have been, I want to say it was not my senior year, but it was my junior year. He literally just shot the gap and completely blew me up. We were running like a simple dive play. It was like literally a bang bang. Like I can't believe I didn't fumble it because that's how quick it was. It was just like
Wow.
we were trying to and it was to the left side, and I really can't remember the guy's name, but he literally rocked my world.
And the guard just couldn't step, and boom, it's over. Huh?
Yeah, just shot the gap.
Yeah.
Hopefully that guy's listening, because not many people can claim that they
Well,
that they got one up on the beer truck. I
Something
tell
tells
you.
me there's a lot of guys claiming to be that guy as they're listening right now. Oh, that was me.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
me.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I left it open for him.
Todd tweets us and says, Owen, I got to think throughout spanning your entire career, you played some special teams. So I want to know your greatest special teams accomplishment. Was it a punt? Was it a field goal? Was it a return? Was it a block? Or was it just laying somebody out?
Ooh. Well, we were talking about the Kelsey brothers, right? New Heights, right? Their podcast, and Jason had
we
one.
were talking about the Kelsey brothers before we started recording here.
Yep, before we started recording, and Jason was talking about the wedge busters and the wedge. Okay, so back before they like banned it, whatever, I was still in the league then, and I'd have to say wedge buster was probably the funnest play. I was actually playing against Minnesota. Dan Moses was on the team at the time. He was playing for Minnesota at the time, and it was like, I'm from Wisconsin, so like a ton of my family was at the game, and it was the first kickoff, and I went down there, man, and I'm telling you, I lit this lineman up, like under the chin, destroyed him, man. Just
Where was this?
I mean, like this was in Minnesota,
Okay.
right? And this was at the old dome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm jacked up, right? And then I would say literally the next kickoff we had, all 1,000 pounds of that 3-man wedge destroyed me. Like the back of my head hit the ground first. Like that's how they took me out. And I can remember Dan saying, "Welcome to the NFL."
Did you play with Hugh Douglas? Did you miss
Me?
him? Yeah.
In,
Was he gone in Philly by the time you got
in
there?
Philly?
Yeah. I think he was gone.
I think he was. Yeah.
Hugh Douglas, who we played against at Glenville in the playoffs. He was at Central State, Ohio. Oh, and he was the wedge buster on their kickoff team for an NAIA football team. 260.
Yeah, he's
Hugh
amazing.
Douglas, perennial All-Pro defensive
Yeah.
end in the NFL, was an
Jeez.
NAIA
Right.
wedge buster. Yes.
Killed people too.
That's
Oh, just blew
We'll
them.
we'll have to talk about that in a later time, like wedge buster and
Yeah.
the wedge, because it was very primal,
Which
and
is why it's
archaic the
illegal.
way. Yeah, I mean, honestly, my favorite play though. I mean, those would have to be the kickoff, the special.
That's an
teams
episode
kickoffs.
right there. A wedge
That
buster
is-
episode. We
That's-
got it.
We'll
Make a
table
note.
that one. All right, we got some off-season content planned already. I love it.
Yep.
Just two more here. Noah wants to know, during your time in the Big East, was there any defense that you dreaded playing from a schematic standpoint?
I would probably say USF, just because of the athleticism. They matched up really well. They always played us. They'd press us man on the outside, and they'd load the box. And we just couldn't make plays. We just couldn't get past the hump. And that was kind of like the downfall of us playing against a team like that. They matched us up pretty well with speed wise, and they kind of said, all right, well, let's go athlete for athlete and see who makes more plays.
You know what's
Yeah.
interesting about that? The way Levitt built that defense real quick. He built them. You build your team to win your league. And back then, to win your league, you had to go through Morgantown and beat West Virginia. Well, that's what Jim Levitt looked at. So just to your point, Owen, he built a smallish, athletic defense that could run sideline to sideline. Well, what always happened to them in the second half of the year? We always talked about the second half fade for South Florida. Well, what would happen with those smallish, athletic sideline to sideline defenders is come late October, November, they would end up facing these NFL tailbacks dotting the I, and Donald Brown, Ray Rice, LaShawn McCoy and these NFL offensive lines leaning on them, and they would just relentlessly pound those smallish South Florida defenses and wear them down. So, yeah, it might have served the purpose of getting the best of West Virginia a couple times, but it always seemed to catch up to them in the end.
Yeah. Versus us, it was a tough one schematically to go against.
They were athletic.
Yeah, super athletic.
Last one here. Mountaineer Maniac David wants to know, Owen, what is your number one beer of choice?
PBR, brother. That's the one I've been drinking since I was a kid.
Miller Lite has been since I was 7 years old.
Old Badger piss. Not for me, but I will drink it.
That's a John Daly quote. A beer choice, Miller Lite, since I was 7 years old. PBR, I love it, from the Runaway beer truck. Again, you want to get involved with the Runaway questions. We do this every few episodes on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast is where you can be following us and be tagging along for all the adventures with the beer truck himself. We're going to take another break here. When we return on the other side, we'll do some of our projections and predictions, what Vegas thinks we think we think. We'll make our weekly predictions for some award winners around the Big 12 as well, too. You are In the Gun. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial security guaranteed.
It's like the Blue Lot, but with better gifts. All the cool kids are hanging out at itgfootball.com. Check it out.
ITG, Wesley Uhler, Jed Drenning, Owen Schmitt with you here. Before we get to a cannonball into the Texas Tech preview, it's time for some predictions and projections that we make here on the podcast every single week. What Vegas thinks we think, previewing some marquee matchups around the conference and the country. Jed, will start in the top 25. Maybe not quite as scintillating as a slate that we had last weekend, but let's pull up the graphic now, and what do you got for us?
Yeah, there's some stuff to chew on here. In other words, big test for Syracuse, who remains unbeaten, one of the surprise unbeatens we talked about in a previous episode, heading to Clemson to take on the 7-0 Tigers. So a battle of the unbeatens in Death Valley. Clemson heavily favored by 13.5 or so. Again, this fluctuates throughout the week. With the over-under, we're projecting a score of something along the lines of 31-17 Clemson over Syracuse. UCLA out on the West Coast.
Another surprise unbeaten.
Another surprise unbeaten. Chip Kelly, a guy getting left out of a lot of the Coach of the Year discussions. Maybe it's time to I'll tell you what, you win this game on the road in Eugene, he'll start being mentioned in some of those conversations, but it's going to be a tough one. Oregon has really bounced back since getting their doors blown off in the opener against Georgia. Bo Nix is playing good football. They're favored by 6 over UCLA at home at Outson. We're projecting a 38-31 type Oregon victory. And then finally, in the SEC, Alabama looking to rebound, and they'll have to do so at home in Tuscaloosa against the Pirate as Mississippi State comes to town ranked at 5-2. Bama heavily favored by 21, over under low 60s. We're projecting, again, not predicting, projecting a 41-20 kind of Alabama win, but who knows? With Leach playing pitch and catch, that crew he's got, crazy things happen. We'll see, but those are our projections in the top 25.
I'll tell you this, if history has taught me anything over the Nick Saban era, it's that pray for whoever plays Alabama after a loss, because it usually doesn't go well. There's usually a lot of Roll Tide frustrations that are taken out there following a defeat. So all the best to Mississippi State as they head to Tuscaloosa. Jed, across the Big 12, some moving. I think it's maybe a moving and shaking weekend across the conference. Let's pull up the graphic here, and what do you got for projections?
Yeah, we'll dive into the Big 12 here. One quick comment to leave you with, guys, about Alabama. I heard somebody mention this the other day, and it made me think. When's the last time we could say at this point in the season Alabama was a couple plays away from having 3 losses? Interesting.
Yeah.
But in the Big 12, Kansas on the road at Baylor. Kansas as a heavy underdog. Baylor favored by 8. Baylor's a good football team. Kansas is a good football team. We've seen them both. We know that. We're projecting a 33-24 style Baylor win. Texas on the road at Oklahoma State. Bit of a surprise here with the way this line played out. It's gone up to Texas -6.
Whew.
So Texas favored in Stillwater, expecting kind of a poor man's shootout in the low 60s. We're projecting, based on the numbers, a 34-27 Texas win. And TCU hosting Kansas State. This is a big one. Kansas State with 1 loss. TCU, obviously, as we've talked about, unbeaten. TCU favored by about 3.5. We're looking at a projection of 31-20 TCU over K-State in Fort Worth to round out our Big 12 projections.
Yeah, going to be an interesting weekend across the conference. TCU, can they hold serve at home? Texas, Oklahoma State, both, I think, consensus good teams, but who comes out on top there? Going to be a big weekend across the conference without a doubt. Those are our projections. Now we make some predictions, but before we do, Jed, we've come up with a, I don't know, like a PGA style scoring system here. Let's bring up the standings. How are we looking through what, 8 weeks here?
I got a shovel in my hand because as the guy who builds this graphic, I feel like I've been forced to dig my own grave and then kind of dive in it. Yeah, what we've done is if you nail your pick, you get a couple bonus points. So you get 7 points. You guys have both done so a couple times. I haven't done it at all. If you get on the board and your pick, it doesn't lead the Big 12, but it finishes second place is worth 4 points on down the line. If you finish in the top 5, you get something. So that's the way we've done this. Wes, you regained the lead over Owen. Owen was up last week. You're up 25-20, and somewhere digging again way down below those two. I need a couple home runs myself. So I almost thought about picking my choice this week, whoever Texas Tech rolls with, just to curse them and make sure they don't pile up any yards. So, but anyway, Wes, you're in the lead, but Owen, you're a win away from regaining the lead. Maybe. Let's see what happens.
I tell you what, listen, as long as me and Big O are pacing the way, baby, we're in good shape.
That's not going to change.
Well, let's see if it does here, Jed. We'll start with you, Big 12 Signal Caller of the Week, where the Signal Caller himself tells us which conference quarterback is going to throw for the most passing yards. Jedger, who you got this week?
Well, I think that the Fighting Gundies of Oklahoma State are good at a lot of things, but one of them is not stopping the pass. So I do think I expect some points in Stillwater with the Longhorns in town. I'm going to go with Quinn Ewers. First time I've gone with Quinn Ewers because I'm still kind of sitting back in the show me a little more posture with Quinn Ewers. But maybe this is an opportunity for him to do that, utilize some of those weapons against the 10th ranked pass defense, or one of the worst pass defenses, I should say, in the Big 12 in Oklahoma State. So expect a lot of points, and I think Quinn Ewers is going to have some opportunities to make some plays in the air. So I think he will lead all Big 12 passers in yardage this week.
Let's see if the mullet can get Jed his first home run of the season. Runaway Beer Truck of the Week, where Owen tells us which running back in the conference will rush for the most yards. Owen, you've kept our graphic team, all of our behind-the-scenes producers and graphic people and statisticians, you've kept them on their toes, wondering where's he going to go. Who will it be?
All right, I'm going Devin Neal.
Ooh.
Okay. Here's the deal. They're playing Baylor, correct? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Our boys had a day. Okay. Mathis put up 163. Now, he hasn't been getting as many touches. There's got to be something going on here. He was so great last year. I'm feeling it right now. I feel like he's going to have it. And this is going to be his game. He needs one. He needs this coming out game. Like he's kind of been, low carries. They roughly up to 100 yards a game, close, 80 in that 80 range, 100 yards. I think this is his breakout. I think he has a day against Baylor.
Hey, you've been in his corner. You've had his back all season
Golly,
long.
Man, come
Time
on,
for him to
brother.
produce for you. Come
Throw
on.
me a bone, son.
He needs some totes, man. If they can
He just needs some totes. That's what I mean. Give him an 18 carry game, man. Man, look what he could do. I mean, 12 carries is what they had him at, and that's been his like biggest performance of the year. 12 carries, and that was last week.
Well, I think part of it too
know.
is they got a little bit of depth in that room.
They do.
Not as
I
much.
mean, yeah, they do. I just, I don't know.
He can bust them. I mean, he can put
them
40 some yards 2 or 3 times in a game. The next thing you know, you're 1.5 bills with that guy. So,
and that's what ends up happening too. Sometimes he'll bust, like, he's had a couple of big gains, like, 50 plus. He's had a couple of those runs this year. So we'll see what happens. I need it, brother.
Last but not least, certainly not last or least, as I'm in first place in this thing, boys. Big 12 Defense of the Week. I am going to go with Texas Christian University, the Horned Frogs and those dumb little hand signals that they do. They got Kansas State coming to town, to Fort Worth, and I think Kansas State's a good team. But they're not putting up a ton of points consistently. If TCU can get a lead in this one, maybe make Kansas State play catch-up a little bit. It is the lowest over-under, according to Vegas, in the conference this weekend, and inside scoop for everybody. That's one of the first things that I do when I make this prediction every week is I look what Vegas thinks the over-unders are going to be for all these games. So with my best educated guess that has served me pretty well so far, I will go with TCU as your Big 12 Defense of the Week. We're going to take – oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, could this be the week that Adrian Martinez regresses back to the turnover-plagued Adrian Martinez of Nebraska? If they fall behind in Fort Worth, that may happen, but sorry to interrupt, but let's move forward. That's an interesting matchup down there.
If Martinez regresses and I get another W over here, boys, I mean, I tell you what, I'm going to look like Tiger Woods at Pebble Beach just running away from the field, baby.
You're going to start doing this graphic. I'm going to hand you the shovel.
We got to get to another break here, but when we come back, it's Red Raider time. We'll tell you who's got the advantage in the air, on the ground, special teams, intangibles, as we start to preview Mountaineers versus Texas Tech. You are in the gun.
Game day got you on the go? We get it. GoMart is here to keep you going all season long with stores throughout our home state. We're a proud West Virginia-owned company, and our friendly staff is committed to serving our communities. From fuel to freshly brewed coffee and snacks, a stop at GoMart to cover your game day needs is always a touchdown. Plus, GoMart Rewards members earn points with each purchase to redeem for discounts on gas and free items. So stop by, start saving, and stay on the go with GoMart.
Mountaineer Nation, have you visited us online? For great gifts and gear and our entire episode playlist, check out itgfootball.com.
ITG, it's time to get you ready here for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. A trip down to Lubbock looms for the Mountaineers Saturday, 3 o'clock our time, 2 o'clock local time for Jed and the gang with boots on the ground. Let's get into it, as we like to do here, talking about who's got the edge, the advantage in the air, on the ground, and on special teams and intangibles. Jed, since you are the signal caller, I will go to you here first. Who's got the edge in the air?
I'm going to go with Texas Tech having the edge in the air, but it's a deeper conversation, obviously. When you think of Texas Tech offensively, the first thing you think is tempo. I mean, they're averaging 87 snaps a game, far and away the most in the country. The third down numbers we'll get into the next segment are misleading because they go for it on fourth down so often. So it's a different team to prepare for, but what they are is they're a rhythm-based offense. They're not a big play offense. And here's a couple of numbers that'll bear that out. What you see on tape is supported by all these numbers. When it comes to plays of 10 plus yards, they have the most in the Big 12. It's all about rhythm. But when it comes to big plays of 30 plus yards, they have the fewest in the Big 12. Okay. Now they will put the football in harm's way. They have 13 turnovers, combination of fumbles and picks. You can get after them from a pressure standpoint. Protection is an issue for them. Their 3.8 sacks allowed are the most in college football. So we have an opportunity to have a day in terms of pressuring them. Okay. When you look at their turnover issue, there's an interesting number on Football Outsiders. What they do is they look at the percentage of your overall offensive possessions that end in a turnover. 15.7% of their possessions end in a turnover. That's like 1 in 6.
Yeah.
That's 108th in the country. So now the one game they didn't turn the football over just
Texas.
happened to be their time capsule moment this year. It was the upset of Texas at home. Okay. So we're going to have to get them off script, get them behind schedule, get after them, pressure them. But they do have the playmakers to make those plays downfield. They got a kid in Miles Price that's very versatile. He's shifty. Like to use him in the slot. They got a big, tall 6'5" weapon, a freshman on the perimeter that's really coming to his own. This Jaron Bradley kid, he's been a productive weapon for him. But when you look at it, I like the idea of us being able to, even when it comes to their ability to pressure the passer with that long 6'5" transfer they got from Texas A&M, Tyree Wilson, 19. I like the fact that JT gets the football out so quickly. A matter of fact, JT gets the football out. His average time to throw the football per release is the fastest among all Big 12 starters, and it's the third fastest in college football. That translates to solid pass protection. The O-line is protecting him well. He's getting it out quickly, but I just think that they're going to come at you at the speed of light with these weapons on the perimeter. They have a couple different trigger men they can rely on, whether it's Donovan Smith, or it's Baron Morton, the kid that played really well in his first start in Stillwater in the loss a couple weeks ago. So they have options behind center. They're incredibly creative with what they do with Zach Kitley. So much has been made of him as a play caller. Guys, one of the biggest offensive turnarounds in the history of college football took place under him last year at Western Kentucky. They were atrocious, and he made them one of the better offenses in the country in one off season. So they're dangerous. They're electric. They're aggressive. They give themselves a ton of extra chances. I just think they're going to be a handful for our back end. I do think that we're going to find a way to penetrate and get some pressure and take them down a handful of times, but they're going to make some plays in the pass game. They're built to do that. They have the most passing yards in college football since 2000 as a program, the most passing touchdowns in college football since 2000. It's difficult to go into Lubbock, okay, and out-throw the Red Raiders. So I have to go with Texas Tech.
Big O, do you concur?
Yeah, I would agree with Jed. Just some minor chicken scratch that I've thrown down here. They're averaging 365 yards a game passing. We're roughly 271. Really, I think the biggest thing for us defensively is just we're so weak in the secondary right now. And so I definitely expect Texas to make some plays on us. Now, some good things for us. We got 3 wide receivers over 350 yards. Obviously, BFW's got 463. KP's got 369. Sam James got 357. They total 9 touchdowns to the 3 of them. I think we're going to make some plays too. And I think, like Jed was alluding to as well, I think our defensive line is going to have to, we're going to have to get pressure on them. We're going to have to make them scramble, get them out of their rhythm, like he was saying. But I think with our secondary being down right now, we have to give the advantage to Texas Tech.
They got 6 guys with 200 yards receiving.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive.
They come at you in a lot of directions, but
they get the ball around to a lot of people, and a lot of those guys have two or more touchdowns.
I'll make it a clean. Let me try that again.
That's all, folks.
Bleep. I'll make it a clean sweep. There we go. And I'm going to go with the Red Raiders' advantage in the air as well, too. Everything you guys just said, I am a little optimistic. Charles Wood sounds like he's going to play, albeit in a limited capacity. Hopefully that helps on the back end for the Mountaineers. But all the things you guys just said. I think the only thing I have to add is that Texas Tech is 4th in the nation in pass yards per game. Not in the Big 12.
Yes.
In the nation. Top five. Top 5.
Kitley gets it.
I'm going Texas Tech in the air.
Kitley brings it. Kitley's going to put a good plan together. I keep going back to the only way we could tilt this thing is with the pass rush, because we talked about JT getting it out quickly. Well, when you look at, again, when you study average time to throw, some of the two slower average time to throw among Big 12 passers are Donovan Smith and Baron Morton. So part of it's the issues they have up front. Guys, there's two numbers I want you to focus on. They got a guard by the name of Weston Wright, number 70, and a tackle by the name of Caleb Rogers, number 76. Those two, when you study tape, really struggle in pass pro. So if we start chopping the front up and confuse them a little bit, in addition to having the physicality and quickness and bursts that we can have out of the Dante Stills and Jordan Jeffersons, they might have their hands full. And it's all about throwing them far enough off script that they can't go for all these fourth downs. So we'll see, but
that we will. All right, now who's got the edge? Who's got the advantage on the ground? Since you are the beer truck, Big O, I'll let you go first on this one. Who you got?
It's not really their forte. They're more of obviously a passing team. So I'm going to go with WVU here. We have been really starting to click, I think, offensively up front with our backs. We've had some injuries. And guys have stepped up. Obviously, Mathis being that guy last week, having a big game, 163 yards on the ground. I don't know. They do have two big backs with Thompson and Brooks. I think, Thompson's 230, Brooks is 220, something like that. I just, like I said, it's not really their forte to run the football. And I think we're going to give them a little bit of a stink up front as far as our O-line goes. So I'm definitely going with the Mountaineers. Plus, we get the big boy back. So I'm sure it'll be limited reps too. But I see we got a pretty good three-ring circus back there with those guys. So I see us having the day in the rushing aspect of the game.
Mr. Signal Caller, will you make it 2 for 2?
Yeah, I think part of this is going to be, this might be the most critical part of this football game to me. I think we have to find a way to run the football. If we find a way to run the football with consistency, a lot of other successful things will be downstream from that. We can be more balanced offensively. We can dictate the flow of the game. We can maybe chip into that high snap count they like to dump on your defense. Now, here are the issues you're going to encounter. When you look at the last 3 matchups against Texas Tech, here is what we've done with Neil Brown running the football. Now we have a whole new look offensively, which we'll get into. But one of the issues in these 3 losses have been slow starts, okay, and an inability to run the football. Last year, we had 94 yards, averaged 3.5 yards a carry. 2 years ago, 91 yards, 3.1 a carry. 2019, it was 51 yards, less than 3 yards a carry. So we're looking at collectively over the last 3 years, 236 total yards rushing, okay, in those 3 games. That's not going to get it done. Now, if you go back and look at the matchups, here's where the chess piece of it comes in. Graham Harrell has faced Tim DeRuyter as coordinators. In 2019, Graham Harrell was at USC. Tim DeRuyter was at Cal. Okay, well, Graham's Trojans marched into Cal, marched into Berkeley, and they had their way in a 41-17 game. They threw all over the yard, 400-plus yards through the air. They were 7 of 13 on third down. They only committed 1 turnover. It was a heck of an effort. Now, even despite all those things, Tim DeRuyter still put together a plan, overmatched as he might have been at Cal against USC, to hold USC to 56 yards running the football. That's what he's going to try and do against us. He knows that we want to come out there and run the football. He wants to force us to dribble with our left hand. He doesn't want to make it easy on us. He's going to mug those fronts up, mug those gaps up. Now, here's why I think we have an opportunity to do something about it. We talked a week ago or a couple shows ago about the performance that Tony had a week ago. Wes, you asked, what were his yards after carry? Well, again, when I dug into the analytics, it was 66 yards after carry. The number that jumped out was 13 missed tackles forced. He has to run angry like that again, because he's going to be doing it against the defense that when you look at what Tech has done against the run, their numbers are kind of sagging against the run. They're toward the bottom of the Big 12. They're toward the top of the Big 12 against the pass because a lot of teams have decided to run the football on them, right? The bulk of the issues came in one game, and that was that two-headed monster of Deuce Vaughn and Adrian Martinez. They gave up 343 yards to K-State. Now, outside of that, 111 against NC State, 103 yards a carry. Texas, Bijan didn't exactly have his way with him. 151 total yards, 5 yards a carry. Oklahoma State last week or 2 weeks ago, 137 yards. So they've kind of held serve. So he's creative enough that he will find ways to commit resources to the box. He'll match in coverage. He'll play man. It's not his first rodeo. He's had 7 coordinator jobs in a quarter century. He's going to come out with a creative plan to try and stop us. But I think, again, we talk about the numbers the last 3 years, 236 total yards rushing in these 3 losses. We had 217 against Baylor. And I think Baylor is a better defensive football team than Texas Tech. They're better equipped. They're just as well coached. So I think the return of CJ with Tony Mathis playing his best football and Justin sprinkling in just enough, JT putting us in the optimal play, reading the front. I can't say enough about the intelligence and football IQ of Zach Frazier. That's going to matter in a game like this. All those things come together. I have tremendous respect for Krishan Merriweather. He's a heck of a linebacker as their leading tackler. They have some physical guys in the back end, a couple safeties that'll fly downhill and stick their nose in it. Their corners, not so much. So if we can get that stretch play cranking, Owen, I don't think their corners want to dip into the briar patch after anything. So I think we're going to have an opportunity to lean on these guys, and we're going to have to stick with it. It might take a couple quarters, 3 quarters, but we're going to have to stick with it because I think this is the single most important part of this game will be our ability or inability to run the football on that defense.
Agreed.
I completely agree. I think we're all on the same page here as well, too. I'm going WVU to make it another clean sweep here. CJ back, Tony what he did last week, Justin Jefferson what he's shown at times this season, the offensive line that's coming off their best performance of the season. It's got to happen on Saturday in Lubbock. Those numbers, Jed, of the past 3 years against Texas Tech on the ground, those are startling in a bad way, not in a good way. You're absolutely right. If WVU wants to dictate this game, it's got to start there, and I'm going to go with the Mountaineers on the ground as well too. I told you Texas Tech 4th in the nation in passing yards, while they're 208th in rushing yards. Quite the contrast there. This is one that the Mountaineers.
Guys?
Yeah.
Our running backs have exactly 200 carries between the 3 of them. Out of those 200 carries, we've only suffered 17 tackles for loss. Second fewest in the Big 12 as a team. But that's the kind of production. You've heard the coaches talk about it. They didn't support it with numbers, but they said, hey, it kind of feels like we're always going forward and rarely going backwards. Well, that's because that's what's happening. We're number 2 in sack prevention in the Big 12, but when it comes to avoiding TFLs and getting knocked off schedule, here's why that matters. Downstream from that is why we're 50% successful on 3rd down. Downstream from that is why we stay ahead of the sticks and we lead the Big 12 in time of possession. We're always moving forward and not moving backward. And that is as meaningful a part of this run game as anything else we do. And that's a testament to the backs. That's a testament to the O-line. And that's a testament to JT putting us in the right situation.
Well, let's stick with you here, Jed, as we start to round this portion of the preview out. Special teams, intangibles. Who's got the advantage there in your mind?
I tell you what, it's tough to go against a Texas Tech team that has Austin McNamara as their punter, right? The last time we were in Lubbock, all he did was boot an 87-yard Big 12 record punt and average 53 yards a punt, right? He's been a consistent performer his entire career. This hasn't been his best season. By his standards, it hasn't, but it's still pretty productive. But he's had some issues with some inconsistency this year. He's been marred by some shanks. That's something he really hasn't struggled with before. But when you look at it from globally, from a special team standpoint, it's not the Austin McNamara that we've got in the previous years. He might come out and drop 54-yard average on us again. It could happen. Let's look at the kickers. A comparison there. Again, Trey Wolf is a guy who started back in 2020 lights out. I mean, I remember he didn't miss his first year in Lubbock. He was 20 of 22. Well, Trey Wolf has missed 7 field goal attempts in his last 16 tries. Casey Legg has missed 7 field goal attempts in his last 43 tries. Okay. So I think we have a slight advantage there. 5 consecutive weeks, Texas Tech has played ranked opponents. This snaps that streak.
Wow.
Okay. So they needed this bye week. They really did, which isn't the first time they're playing us coming off a bye, which is strange enough, like the 3rd time in 4 years. I would say expect a lot of flags. When you look at, they rank teams in the Big 12 that induce the most penalties from their opponents. We're 1 and they're 2. So that could be a flag happy situation you're looking at there. But I think the return of CJ, I think even if it's spot duty, the return on the back end of Charles to see what he might be able to do. I'm going to go with an edge for us, more so because of the intangibles, in part because of the special teams. But again, I'm just hoping Austin McNamara doesn't break his 87-yard punt record this time around like he did the last time around. That's what I'm going with, is advantage West Virginia.
Big O, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, Jed's basically, I mean, what can I say that Jed hasn't said? Just a couple chicken scratches.
He's good at this, I tell you.
I know he is. The thing that I did notice, obviously, Casey hasn't had to kick over a 40-yard field goal this year. So he's had, roughly, what I would say is the wheelhouse for kickers, right? Yeah, that 40 and under. Now our boy on the other side, right? He's 2 for 5 from 40 to 49. He did kick a blaster at 50 plus there that he did make. So the longer end, he's struggled with. He's 72 on his field goals per stand. And just some other numbers here. Really screw the numbers. Obviously, it's here and there. In the punt game, averages we're looking pretty good there. But the one thing that does bother me is just the drops, right? And that's the only thing I'm kind of scared of, where that could be an intangible where, well, man, that could create a turnover. Is that really going to put us in the driver's seat as far as like having the advantage in the special teams?
Especially if it's windy.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So
it's windy there.
I will say, as far as, what we do on paper, I'll give advantage WVU, but hopefully we play a perfect game. And is that all? Sorry, blah, 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 blah. As far as that goes, eliminate the turnovers. We can't muff any more kicks this year. We got to get that. That has to be gone, right? We're way too far into the season to be making mistakes like that. But as far as the numbers go on paper, I'll give advantage WVU.
Wow, look at this. For the first time in ITG history, we're all going to be a clean sweep on all 3 of these. I'll go Mountaineers as well, too. I'm with Big Owen, though. I tell you what, I got PTSD every time we drop back to field a friggin' punt now. It's like I said on our Baylor recap episode when it was Preston Fox, right, who muffed that one against Baylor, right? Is that right, Jed? I mean, Owen had to stop me from jumping out of Milan Puskar Stadium to my own death there. I was ready to lose it all there, partner. But for me, special teams, it feels like a pretty even venture. What this came down to for me, and Jed makes a good point about the bye week for Texas Tech. At least, though, for WVU, you get a little bit longer of a week, right? Having played on Thursday instead of Saturday, you get 48 hours extra there or so. But the return of C.J. Donaldson and Charles Woods, for me, just pushed this ever so slightly for WVU.
Yeah.
Those two are both difference makers. To get them back, coming off of an emotional, hopefully lifting victory against Baylor there at home on Thursday night. This team played very good football down the stretch last season. Started 2-4, finished 4-2. Now we're at 3-3. If we can get another one of those, win 4 or 5 of these last 6 games, I think we'll all be ecstatic. The Mountaineers, it feels like, have played good football down the stretch throughout Neil Brown's tenure, where sometimes they might have lost some ones early in the season that you want back. They're able to get some of those to go the other way on the back end down the stretch. So I'm going to go slight advantage to WVU here as well, too. So we'll pull up the graphic right now, and it shows you we are all on the same page. We've all got Texas Tech in the air, and we've all got WVU on the ground, and WVU with the edge in special teams and intangibles as well, too. So one more segment to go here as we continue to break this all down and preview Texas Tech. We'll look back at the last meeting. We'll look at the tail of the tape, offenses versus defenses, some score projections, all that before we get out of here. But now it is time for a word from our new friends at Fortis. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial security guaranteed. Final segment here of ITG, episode 19, the Texas Tech preview. It's time now to look back and review WVU's loss 23-20 at home last year. This was one of those, Jed, I think you and I talked about this on earlier episodes when we were just getting into this and when the season was just getting started, how last year there were 3 losses that really felt like missed opportunities. We talked about Maryland to open the season. We talked about on the road in Oklahoma and Norman there. And we mentioned being able to claw back into that one at home against Texas Tech, tying up the game. And then your defense on the final drive there can't stop the Red Raiders from kicking that game-winning field goal. Let's pull up the graphic here right now. What do you remember from last year, partner?
A slow start. That's the one thing that strings these 3 consecutive losses to Texas Tech together. In 2019, in Morgantown, they jumped all over us out of the gate. It was 21-3 before we could blink. We went to Lubbock in 2020. It was 13-7 at the end of the first quarter when they had a backup quarterback. Last year, they jumped on us 14-0 in the first quarter, 17-0 at the half. So we were behind the 8 ball right out of the gates. What made this such a tough situation is fresh in our mind was what played out in Norman. Okay. Fresh in their mind, they were 3-1 coming to Morgantown, but they were on the heels of that 70-35 loss to Texas. Okay. And they were really beside themselves over that loss. So they regrouped. They found a way to jump all over us early. And as you touched on, we found ways to be creative through the pass game. Jared had a good second half. It's probably the best second half he played as a Mountaineer, and brought us back to the brink of pulling it off. And we couldn't get that one final stop to get the ball back and try and finish it. But that's what I remember about it is we have to get off to a better start. I mean, the script right out of the gates, 3 consecutive years has favored Texas Tech, and we can't dig ourselves that hole. And really the numbers reflect that. Not when you look at it big picture globally, but when you break it down by half, it was like 2 different football games. So that's what I remember the most.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was another slow start against the Red Raiders. Can't have that happen this time around, and that's something we'll all be keeping an eye on early on, especially. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape here as well, brought to you by our friends at High Street Prints. Make sure you're visiting them at highstreetprintshop.com for all of your printing and merchandise needs. Check us out at itgfootball.com for some merch brought to you by High Street Prints as well, too. Jed, you want to start with the WVU offense versus Texas Tech D, or WVU D versus the Red Raiders O?
Mountaineer offense. Let's pull that up first and take a quick look at it. And again, we always like to jump right to the third down success we've had. We're number 2 in the Big 12. We spent a good portion of the offseason talking about that could be one of the things that Graham Harrell brought with him was some third down success, because that's kind of been his track record. And it's served us really well, and it's going to need to serve us again. If you want to keep Texas Tech under 100 snaps, which is what they're hell-bent on trying to achieve, they want to put your defense through the ringer. They want to drag you out there and put you through, as Professor Schmitt said in a previous episode, pass happy hell. That's what they want to drag you into. Well, one of the ways to offset that is you have to win transition downs, okay? Starting on the offensive side of the football. So if you run the football effectively, and if you look at the run game, 191 yards are good enough for middle of the pack. It feels better because we have balance on offense. It feels more effective than just 5th in the Big 12, but that's where we're at. If we can have balance, stay ahead of schedule, find ourselves in manageable situations on third down, and convert half our third downs in this game, that's going to serve us very well and help us keep them off the field just enough. Now, that is going to be a battle because they've been pretty effective as a third down defense. But again, their numbers are a little misleading when you look at their pass defense, number 2 in the league, and their rush defense, number 9 in the league. People have had success running the football on them, so they haven't thrown the football on them as much. And sometimes teams have been playing with leads with them, so against them. So that's kind of where the numbers stack up with our offense against their defense.
Interesting. And all right, signal caller, what do we got on the other side of the equation here when you look at the WVU defense versus the Red Raiders offense?
Okay, well, we have to take advantage of the fact that they're not a very effective third down offense. Now, let's lend that some perspective. They're 9th in the Big 12 in third down offense, but much like we talked about last week at Baylor. Why do they do this? First of all, their head coach, Joey McGuire, is a guy who was on staff at Baylor last year when Dave Aranda was going for it on 4th down all the time. So he kind of fell in love with that and brought it with him to Lubbock. So when you look at their third down numbers, you have to shoot them through a prism. I mean, a lot of times if it's 3rd and 9, they're not trying to convert. They're trying to pick up 5 or 6 and go for it on 4th, because they go for it on 4th more than anybody, not just in the Big 12, but in the country, 25 times so far. So that works both ways. If you can win on 3rd down and then win a couple times on 4th down, this is what Oklahoma State did to them. Oklahoma State is very meticulous about tracking hidden yardage. Gundy's staff does a great job of doing this. They had 3 critical 4th down stops, which started against Texas Tech 2 weeks ago when they beat them. Okay. They won on 3rd down, and then they won on 4th down. And as a result, Oklahoma State was handed tremendous field position. And what they did was they quantified it in such a way as from a hidden yardage standpoint. I think Oklahoma State came out saying they felt they had like 235-yard advantage or so on hidden yardage, because this notion of going for it on 4th down backfired 3 key times with adverse field position on Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech will come back and say, well, hey, our analytics when I was on staff at Baylor said that, if the possessions you lose by not going for it are far outweighed by the ones you gain by going for it. It's like 85-14, but you can go, it's a battle of the analytics.
Sure.
But it all starts with West Virginia finding a way, and we haven't been a tremendous third down defense, okay? We're 8th in the league, but we have to find a way by winning on 3rd down. And don't just win. We talked earlier about their issues with pass protection. Win resoundingly. If it's 3rd down and 7, don't turn it into 4th and 3. Sack them. Make it 4th down and 13 and take it off the table. I want to see Austin McNamara punting. I don't want to see them using their quick game. You know what I'm saying? So make it so unilateral, the decision, that it's 4th and so long, they don't even consider it. Because you don't just need to win on 3rd down against these guys. You need to win with a couple exclamation points to take 4th down off the table. That's where the pass rush and how you can impact the Texas Tech quarterbacks comes into play. So when I look at these numbers, our lack of success on 3rd down has to become a plus, and we have to improve there, but not just win on 3rd down, because if it's 4th and 3, they're going for it. You have to win resoundingly on 3rd down. If that makes any sense, that's the way I'm looking.
It absolutely does.
When I break these numbers down, that's what I'm looking at.
And you know what, Owen? I guess maybe the good thing is same church, different pew. You just saw that last week from Baylor. Now it's a little more extreme with Texas Tech, but at least you've had some trial in that fire already.
Yeah, and they've gotten some reps on that in the game. You know, what I mean, with having to understand those situations. So hopefully, obviously, that's been a point of emphasis this week, and we can make sure to eliminate those third and shorts and keep them the longs.
Another big game from 5-5 would go a long way, I tell you.
When you're facing a tempo team, you can turn that against them. Okay. In other words, Owen, we both played in tempo offenses, right? Now, the vast majority of the time, the Lions must share the time. Things are all clicking. You're firing on all cylinders. But there were those days when it just wasn't clicking. And it's not just a 3 and out. It's a quick 3 and out. Meanwhile, your defense is on the sideline. It doesn't have time to put a fire out. They still have the Gatorade cup in their hand. They're still staring at the grease board, and the formation's not even done being drawn up by the D coordinator, and they're rushing back out because of a quick 3 and out. All it takes is a couple of those. And if it's not a 3 and out, how about one of these? They have 13 turnovers. How about forcing a turnover early in a possession? Turn their tempo against them. If you can just do that a couple times, then all of a sudden you might find a situation. We've talked about this in the past, where your 2.5 yards per carry average in the first quarter turns to 3.5 in the second quarter, 4.5 in the third quarter. And by the fourth quarter, they've been on the field so much defensively, fatigue turns us all into cowards, right? And now you're just gashing them. That's what can happen if everything goes according to script, but it's difficult to make that happen because they're dangerous.
All right, Jed. What's the Vegas thinks we think we think? What's the score projection here? I got a feeling we're not going to like it.
Yeah, I got a sense we're not going to like it either. But when you feed into it, when you're looking at a combination of the point spread, the over/under, first of all, Vegas expecting a lot of points. Okay. And second of all, they're expecting us to be on the business end of it. So you're looking at a 38-31 type game. This again, projection. A projection Vegas would have you believe that's the type of football game it's going to be in favor of Texas Tech. But projections, not predictions. Like last week, how far off were we on that projection? So let's hope we're off on this projection. Let's hope Vegas is off, I should say, on this projection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One more time as we start to get out of here. Thanks to our friends at Bet Online for bringing this episode to you. Make sure you're checking out betonline.ag for all of your betting needs. Big O, any final words?
Tell an ear to tell an ear, brother.
Tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. One thing quickly before we go that I've got for you. Around this time last week on our Baylor preview, I said, Tony Mathis, this is your game. CJ's out. We all were expecting big things from you this year. Let's go make it happen. And he did. How about a little Bryce Ford-Wheaton magic again in Lubbock on Saturday? Bryce was massive against Pitt and Kansas. It's not like he's been a non-factor or been bad or anything like that, but as we've discussed on the podcast, the secret on BFW is out. Defensive coordinators have been trying to take him away, but with what we saw from KP3 on Thursday, that becomes a little bit more difficult. So, Bryce, I think we get this run game going. I think you've got an opportunity to hit some big plays, some play action, catch them sleeping a little bit. I wanted it from Tony last week, and we got it.
Yeah.
How about another big game from Bryce Ford-Wheaton here down in Lubbock?
There are some parallels to some extent with what Pitt did defensively to what we could expect on some level Texas Tech to do, in the sense that they'll give you some opportunities on the perimeter. In other words, they'll sometimes put those guys on an island a little bit. Last week, it was a lot of too high. Baylor wasn't going to do that. Okay. The way Baylor surprised us was sitting in zone instead of matching off that zone a little more than they have against previous teams. But they weren't going to, put their corners on many islands and just leave them out there. Texas Tech might do that. So it could be that kind of day for Bryce.
Hey, we'll see. If I hit 2 for 2 here, you guys can start calling me the prophet. Wes Uhler, instead of the host, Wes Uhler.
Westradamus. Yeah.
Westradamus. That's right. We got to get out of here. Thanks again to Bet Online. Thanks to all of our friends, High Street Prince, Fortis, Toothman Ford, GoMart, everybody who makes this possible. For the best 2 teammates in the business, Jed Drenning and Owen Schmitt, I'm Wesley Uhler. Be an ear, tell an ear. Follow us on all your social media channels, and make sure you're checking out itgfootball.com if you want to grab some merch as well, too. Jed, safe travels to Lubbock. Don't come back unless you bring a win or maybe some tortillas let's go with a win instead. And
Maybe
that'll
both.
how about both? How about a win? How about a W and some tortillas?
I'll
There
tell
we
you,
go.
I'm gonna scoop one up on the sidelines and stick it in my bag. I'll see
There
what
we-
kind of shape
You
it's
can
in.
hang it up.
And
You
I'll
can
mail
hang it
to
up
Owen
behind.
to put
Hang
some
it up
cheese
behind
in
you.
it. Well, I'm gonna mail it to Owen, and he'll spread some nice little bit of Chief Osceola on it, and he'll roll it up.
And we'll make sure,
Chief
right,
Osceola
Owen,
cheese
make
dip,
sure, Owen, that he
Jed,
sends
I'm
it via
telling you right now,
UPS, right? So it
yeah,
doesn't
you
get
better.
stuck.
Yeah, no kidding. It don't get moldy. If you send me a tortilla after the win, I'll fire up the grill and I'll eat that damn thing.
There we go. All
Well,
right.
if we win that game, one's gonna be in my bag.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's go get a win down in Lubbock. Let's go get Neil Brown off that schneid for a Red Raiders victory, and let's get back into the win column and a winning record here for the first time this season as well too. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Win, lose, or draw. We'll be back here next week to break it all down with you. You've been in the gun.